Welcome to our DEUS webinar today on the topic of multi-level agencies. My name is Karl Eckert from the German Environment Agency, and along with my colleagues Uwe Ferber from the Stadtland GmbH in Leipzig and Sabine Martin at the Kansas State University, we'd like to welcome you to this small roundtable discussion on multi-level agencies. I will start with a brief introduction of DEUS.net. We are a group of the US Environmental Protection Agency and members from the German Environment Agency discussing about issues of land revitalization in both countries. And to come into discussion with each other, we started the area-wide planning webinar series. We've had previous webinar topics such as sustainable reuse of sites. There we heard examples from Jena and Erfurt, as well as the Rust Belt in the US, for example, but also a webinar on tradable development rights, so basically how to reduce land consumption, as well as tools and geographic information systems, and finally, community engagement as well. Why do I mention all of that? Because we have the recordings available on our website. If you're interested in those topics, please feel free to take a look. Further, we're motivated by the joint agreement between the US EPA and the German Environmental Agency to increase bilateral cooperation between the two countries. And we try to use this format to come into discussion with each other and reflect on the topics, especially from the topic of, or from the perspective of brownfield revitalization. With that being said, I'd like to jump directly into the topic of today's session. Uwe, if you would, please introduce our speaker from the German side, Mr. Arnz, and after that, we will start with the discussion on the US side. So, Uwe, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Karl. Given the fact that we need massive investment in brownfield revitalization in US and in Europe and Germany as well, we are aware that the concept of area-wide planning on one hand side is one need to approach the problem, but on the other hand, it's not sufficient to promote area-wide planning and funding and new programs from the political level, that we could not also provide the adequate institutional framework for the implementation of program and financing. One answer to get the right way with the institutional framework is to set up intermediary organizations which support municipalities in the brownfield topic. And this type of organization is a specific and successful topic in the land of North Rhine-Westphalia in Germany. North Rhine-Westphalia is one of the most industrialized areas, and so also concerned by a massive problem of brownfields since decades, and have collected very good examples for temporary but also permanent agencies. And one of the examples we selected is one of the permanent agencies, the AAV. Mr. Arnz is the director of the agency and also a well-known colleague in the network of German brownfield experts and head of one of the agencies, one of the groups of the German Brownfield Association. Roland Arnz, thank you very much for joining us. We have a small number, but international participant from Belgium, I see Eddie Welle, and from Italy and from Germany and US. So thank you very much to joining this webinar, and thank you very much for presenting now the experience of the AAV.
Okay, Uwe, thank you very much. I will first start my presentation. Is it working?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thanks. And also thank to Karl for the introduction. What I would like to show you is something about our organization, the tasks, and also some examples of our work. As Uwe said, the AAV is a special association in North Rhine-Westphalia, which is one of the 16 federal states of Germany. It lays in the western part, directly to the Belgium and border to the Netherlands. It's the biggest federal state of Germany with about 18 million people and around 400 municipalities, and has, based on coal mining and steel production, a very long history of industrial production. You can see that, for example, as the picture shows, I think it's a steel production facility from the past. But it's still the main industrial region of Germany. I think also the biggest steel production area in Europe still. So we have industry, but we also have a lot of brownfields here. The graph shows the actual statistic of the potentially contaminated site, which comes from the environmental agency of North Rhine-Westphalia. You can see that we are a number of about 80 to 90,000 sites as a total only in North Rhine-Westphalia, which are separated in the blue part of the column, which relates to former waste dumps, and the red-brown one, which is related to the brownfield, so former industrial use sites. So there's a lot to do. We are dealing with that for I would say around 30 to 40 years, but there's still enough work for 20, 30 years more, I think, perhaps more. I would like to give a short introduction how we see our work with a quote from the Federal State Working Group on Soil Protection that shows that there is really a close link how we use our land and protect it, and also the protection for climate, and that has really a direct link to the life of people, the health, food production, biodiversity. So it's really an important item and an item that directs to the main important future tasks we all have. The challenges we are dealing with, that is due to that North Rhine-Westphalia is, I do not know the right English word, it's quite crowded. So we have a lot of people living there. So we do not have a lot of potentially available land for new developments, but the demand is high for housing or also for a new industry. And based on that, you have to try to find a way to use the brownfields as much as possible, but then you have also to deal with these contaminations and to remediate contaminated site, to develop it for a new use. It's really complex. You need special knowledge and experience, and for of course also a lot of financial and human resources. So it's really a challenge. On one hand, the direction is clear. We have to do that, but it's not easy to do it as much as possible. And for that, the AAV was founded in 1988, and we have 3 different steps, which mainly have to do with our financing. First, it starts with a license fee on hazardous waste, which was not conformed to general law. And afterwards, we were financed by a cooperation between the state of North Rhine-Westphalia, the municipalities, and the industry. And since 2013, the financing of the state and the municipality is fixed in our law, and the companies can be our members on a free basis. We do not get a lot of money at the moment. We are on a level of 8.5 million euros per year, which came from mainly with 7 million from the state and 1 million from the municipalities and 0.5 from our company members. So you can say that we are organized as a kind of public-private partnership due to the three member groups we have, and that's really helpful for our work because the people which are sent by the members to our committees, for example, are really working together, and they are building a very strong competence network in North Rhine-Westphalia for all the tasks we are forced with what we have to do to do our project. So what are the aims, which main tasks, and also the financing of all of our projects are discussed and decided between the partners. And another point which relates to the expert network we have is also that we are able to find pragmatic remediation solutions, so also related to the costs we have to deal with in our projects. We have an own law or act. I think act is the right word. So there is an AAV Act, which has the what is Regelungen?
Which stipulates maybe?
Yeah, the stipulates of all our tasks, but also what we can do for our members, and that's shown in this slide. So the main task is that we can execute and manage projects for the municipalities, and also that we can bring in 80% of the financing for the municipalities, and it's differed in 3 points. The first point is, I would say, the real site remediation without a new use. So, for example, groundwater contaminations. I have some examples later on. The second point is the brownfield redevelopment, where the new use of the sites is the main aim of the municipalities, for example, for housing or for new industrial sites. And we can do that if it really has a part that we can show that we reduce the consumption of natural land use or agricultural land use. That's one of the main parts. And the third, which is perhaps I would say 5% of that, what we are doing is the development and testing of new technologies. For example, we were the company which really starts the in situ chemical oxidation in Germany. It's about 20 years ago now, but we are still testing new technologies in our projects, and that is helpful for our members for their own projects. We can, beside that, give advice and support to our members. So to everything what has to do with our main tasks, but also if there are conflicts between, for example, a company and a responsible authority, then we can do some moderation projects, which also is really taking place year by year, 1 to 2 mostly very important things we are integrated. And we also have a contaminated site risk fund, which was quite a good idea in 2013, but till now it comes not really real projects based on that. It's also quite interesting. The process we are following, if the municipalities want to do a project with us, so they can give us requests, can contact us, and based on the information we are getting on the projects, we check the legal and technical conditions. And as you can see, there are 4 main points. So at the end, there are no responsible person can be held liable. That's one of the main things, and that leads to the point, if the authority is also owner of the site, that the remediation responsibility is by the municipality. And also that we have really to do with contaminations based on the German Soil Protection Act. So not only, I would say, waste excavation issues. That are projects we are not taking. And after that, the decision making is in the AFA committees, and if a project becomes part of our project list, we start with a contract under public law between us and the municipality, and after that we have the basis for the execution of the project. So we are doing the tendering procedure, contracting the whole management of the project, and control with our people, everything in close contact and also decision making with the municipality. But our people are doing that, and we contract, for example, construction companies or Ingenieurbüros, engineering companies, for example, analytical work, and so on, drilling work, and afterwards, if we are ready, there is a kind of legal step that the municipality gives us an approval that we did our work as agreed upon in the contract, and then we are free for new projects. So we do not take over some long-lasting responsibilities, and also we are not doing long-lasting groundwater remediations. We only plan and we install the whole equipment, and we are testing it, for example, for 1 to 2 years. But if it's working in the planned way, then it's taking over by the municipality. And based on that, I can make a switch to the real projects we are doing. The picture shows a former site where special industrial blades are produced in Solingen. Perhaps Solingen is known as a city with this history. And you can see what are the main tasks we are dealing with in our projects. In the center, there is the dismantling and the remediation. But we also have to deal with monument conservation, protection of species, landscape conservation, everything what has to do with the risks which are coming from the Second World War. Bomb protection and everything what has to do with that, and what is also very important and what's our task, to protect the residents, so to protect them due to the work we are doing on the site, but also to really have a good communication strategy, also to the publicity and to the media, because all these projects they do have a high sensibility from the public, and it's very important. For example, if you want to have a real good project at the end for housing, for example, you have to show that the work is done in a very good way, and that only is possible when you communicate everything early and very open. That's our way we do it. And that's the actual map with our project. The red ones are active. It's a number of 62 at the moment. They are in very different status. Some of them are more or less new, and others we at the moment have our remediation work in place, and in the past 71 are completed since 1988, and up to now the total financing was 195 million euros. And we have a regulation in our law that if a municipality sells the site we have remediated to a private investor, we will participate on the money they get. We call that Mittelrückfluss, which is a kind of cash flow. That was till now 7.5 million. So we are not financing us from this selling. It's only a kind of add-on we can use for a new project as well. And you also can see some numbers about the total size of the project since 2002. Before we have not counted that, which is above 400 hectares in Germany. Based on German soccer fields, it's 720. And the projects where we have brownfield redevelopment, land recycling, it's about 160 hectares, which is about 225 soccer fields on the size. So and then I would like to show you some projects we made in the past. That is a special one. We get special funding for that, where we mobilized 12 locations in North Rhine-Westphalia for the municipalities. And that was really dealing for housing, and on a total of 8.1 hectare. The municipalities are now going on to build housing for 400 to 500 residential units. That was related to a lot of people which came 2015, 2016 from foreign states to Germany. Now I would like to show you some real remediation projects, so no new use. The first one is a former production of explosive materials in the middle northern part of North Rhine-Westphalia. You can see the status of the site and the picture in the middle below. And it's a site of about 100 hectares. And from the production over 100 years, but also from deliberation of old bombs, a big groundwater contamination exists now within a plume of some kilometers. You can see that in this picture. And the plume, the direction of the plume is going to the main drinking water reservoir of, I would say, 1 to 2 million people of North Rhine-Westphalia. So it's really an important project, and we are now going on to bring it on a very stable technical and science basic, that we can really find the right methods how we can stop the further explanation is not the right word for the growth of the plume, and on long term, based on biological degradation, to reduce the potential of the contaminants in the groundwater. It's a very heavy contamination, and also the groundwater has a depth, I think, of about 80 meters or so. It's really a big contamination on this project. Next one is what we call new contaminants. That is an issue which is really growing in the last years in Germany, and I think 4 to 5 projects we have actually are dealing with contaminations with these polyfluorinated alkane substances, PFAS. And the example I have here was a fire in a former chemical distillation company, and we did the dismantling, and at the moment we are planning the long-term groundwater remediation in combination with an excavation of the main hotspot contamination there. Another one, which is also really relevant, are the VOC contaminations, which are coming from former chemical cleaning sites. Since the 19th, these sites are really important, relevant for big groundwater contaminations. Even they were only small sites where these cleaning companies are working. That's an example where we did an excavation with a big hole drilling machine. You can see that here behind the fence, where we put a window in that the inhabitants can see what we are doing. That was kind of our communication strategy. So that was this area where the main cleaning was located. And the other measure we took was an in situ chemical oxidation at the plume, which you can see on that lab. There was a special part of the city, a kind of wall where this plume was located, and we are still this is still ongoing to remediate this plume with in situ chemical oxidation based on a special hydraulic measure. Next one is also based on the publicity effect, a very important project in one region of North Rhine-Westphalia was the biggest lead mining in the past. And based on that, you have some geological lead concentrations in the ground, but also based on the mining and emission space which are coming from the mining. A lot of the playgrounds, the children playgrounds in this area are contaminated with lead and other heavy metals. And at the moment we are going to remediate them. I think it's a number of altogether about 40, and it's really sensible due to the children which are playing there. But yeah, at the moment, but it's working fine. Now I think the next one shows the first example of an brownfield redevelopment. It's a site I had as an example for the things we are dealing with some sheets earlier. And that's the reactivation of this former blade factory in Solingen. And as you can see here, that's a picture close before the finalization of the work. Some of the old buildings are still there. They are used for bureau activities now. And the city of Solingen is planning a very actual concept for new industrial production, but also a lot of sustainability aspects which they have implemented in the urban planning. Next one is an actual project. It's we call it the Strabag Gelände. Strabag was a company, and it's a construction company, a very big one. Perhaps you know them, which had one of their areas there. But before it was a very big site for steel. I think it was a kind of rolling mill for steel, Balzwerk. I do not know the right English word. And it's a site of 5 hectares, 50,000 square meters. And you can see how we took it over. That was after a fire raising which took place based on playing children. And we are now at the status that the planning for the new use is finalized. You can see the plan of the municipality, which mainly will construct housing there. And our planning is that we will do it in 4 different areas for the remediation. This one, the 4B, there will be a kind of landscape building to contain the lower contaminations, contaminated materials of the site. So that really limits also the costs, but it's an accepted way to use it. And the planning also here in the lower picture shows that it is very nice integrated in the former use of the site. I do not really get the messages. If someone has a question, I think we will do it at the end. It's I think a bit
Yes.
better to use for me. Yeah, useful for me.
Yeah, Roland, we have to hurry up, but we had the questions will be answered in the first at the first break.
Yeah, okay. And the next one, I think I only have 2 slides more now. This one and another one is a site in the city center of a city in also northern part of North Rhine-Westphalia, called now Museumsquartier, where really an interesting, nice new area was constructed for the city of Hamm, and on this side you can see how we gave it to the company, to the municipality, and this shows parts of the dismantling process. But below was a former municipal gas works, so there was a lot of contamination below the ceiling, which we really dig out and to realize a good basis for the new housing. That was, for example, a project where we really got a lot of money back because of the high-level development which took place after our work. The last one, that was also one of the biggest projects we did in the past, is a site, an industrial site in the western part of North Rhine-Westphalia, in the Lower Rhine area. The company was called Electrochemical Factory, but they mainly did the production of glue based on leather waste. So that was a production which really leads to a lot of wage, which they put in 8 big, I do not know, I think it's a kind of gaskets. You can see here the historical picture. And we had the only way, because these were very high contaminations and also with a lot of biological risks, we had only the way to dig them out. You can see that on this picture how that was during the remediation work. So I think the total size of the site was about also 4 hectares, and we dig out more than 100,000 tons of these industrial waste. But now it's really a nice new industrial area of the city of Kempen, and fully accepted. But it was very expensive. I think the total cost of that, the waste excavation and also the groundwater remediation as a total was about 50 million euros. But now in this area, new working places for 300 people are in place, and the municipality gets also their money back from them. And I think I'm at the end now. So thank you very much. I hope my English was not too bad. I did my best.
No, it was a very specific vocabulary. Thank you very much, Roland.
Yeah.
I think you might have a red telephone for municipalities in your office, or for urgent and for troubleshooting. We have 2 questions in.
Yeah, they really like us. That's right. Yeah.
I imagine. We have 2 questions concerning the topic of the AFV. Perhaps Stefan Barth, could you shortly give your 2 questions to the first intervention? Stefan?
Oh, yes, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Roland, thanks a lot for your very interesting presentation and the enormous work you're doing in North Rhine-Westphalia. I had 2 questions. Number 1, you mentioned this brownfields risk fund or portfolio. I would be interested what the purpose was. So you indicated it was maybe not taking the size that you expected or not going as well, but maybe could you just give a little bit more context to it? That would be interesting. And the second question, so maybe you can take both. The second question was, on average in your projects, are you regenerating to the level of hazard prevention, so to get rid of the immediate contamination risk and problem? Or are you more often dealing also with the reuse perspective, because we have discussed this in our round also a lot on the, let's say, risk assessment and accordingly using and integrating the reuse perspectives. You know what I'm talking about. So how often is this actually the case in your practical work that you can use this information as well? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Stefan. I will start with the second one. From the 62 projects we have active at the moment are 30 related to brownfield redevelopment. So there we have to remediate them based on the planned new use. So it has to do, of course, with hazardous prevention, but normally it goes further because we also have to excavate more material or to do more for the planned new use on these sites. The other one, the 32 ones, that are the projects where we only remediate, and that's normally only related to the issues we have to deal with based on the Soil Protection Act. So that's really only prevention of the how does it mean, the protection of the Schutzgüter, the people and groundwater and so on. Yeah, so it's a bit 50-50. Yeah, the risk fund, I think it was really a good idea. They thought that if a municipality sells a remediated site to an investor, if the investor has some fear about rest risks, that we can take them over via our risk fund. That is, in some small words, the construction of this item. In reality, all these things are handled in the normal selling contracts. And that's the reason that it takes not place. We have no project since more than 10 years. So I think the idea is good, but in practice, it does not work. It's an easy answer. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We have a second question from Sabine concerning, Roland, you mentioned you have 8.5 million euro for around 62 projects. It's astonishing because so much project with a so small budget. And Sabine, you want to know how many municipalities are involved or what type of municipalities? Perhaps Sabine shortly.
Yeah,
because I was just wondering how many new projects can you take on, since you already have so many ongoing projects, right? And then also the size of the municipality, because I mean, they have to contribute financially. So does that exclude like smaller communities? Are you dealing mostly with larger communities in North Rhine-Westphalia?
That's really an important point. At the moment, we are still having money from the past of above 60 million. So that gives us some room, but related to all the projects we have at the moment, we are at a point that we are really limited in what we can do with new projects. And we are in an intensive discussion with the state, and that was also seen by the actual parties which are active now, how we can get some more money that we can do more, which is really necessary. So it was a good question. Yes.
Thank you very much, Roland. Sabine, could you take over for our second intervention?
Sure. So it's my pleasure to now introduce Olivia Hough. Olivia is with the city of Springfield, Missouri, and has 20 years of strategic planning and economic development experience. She is currently the regulatory strategist for city utilities, but before she took this new job just recently, she was a senior planner and the brownfields coordinator for the city's economic vitality department. Under her guidance, the city completed numerous area-wide redevelopment projects, and some of these she will introduce today. and probably also talk a little bit about the associated funding and financing strategies that went along with making these projects sustainable and a reality. Olivia, take it away.
Hi, welcome everyone. Great presentation, Roland. I was taking notes and wow, you really got into the remediation aspect, and I think that that's going to be good because I'm going to share a few case studies that really focus on the area-wide planning efforts that preceded a lot of the brownfields remediations that were completed and some that are still in process. And shout out to Sabina, who has helped us from the very beginning, providing technical oversight, connecting us to resources and various agencies. So a main takeaway I would say is the collaborative approach of these different agencies, as you'll see. So I'm just going to flip through a few case studies. This photo here is over one of our lakes in Springfield, Missouri, and we're known for our lakes and rivers and water resources, karst topography. We have caves, sinkholes, so we have complex geological attributes here that definitely can make some of our groundwater remediations challenging. So I noticed you talked, Roland, about several groundwater remediations, and I will go ahead and just dive into it. So where in the world is Springfield, Missouri? Believe me, even when I travel to New York City or California, Colorado, people ask, where's Springfield, Missouri? I believe almost every state in the US has a Springfield. Ours is noted on the map here, really in the central part of the United States. Kansas City, where Sabina is, just north of Springfield, is technically the geographic center of the United States. So we're in the southwest portion of the state, the third largest city in the state of Missouri. We have some numbers here showing our metropolitan population, and we have a 1 million population economic area. We've been listed, as you see here, with some national recognition for business and business growth. We've experienced, you can see the chart here, a lot of population growth in recent years, and were recently named by the Wall Street Journal, which is a reputable publication nationally here, as the #1 city for remote work. So a lot of factors went into that, but our good internet connectivity, some quality of life aspects, and low cost of living went into that. So giving you an idea of at least where we're located. This case study I wanted to throw out because this is well underway, but this was a historic area, a commercial area that developed when the railroad came to our community really in the 1860s, and this town grew as a railroad boom town that was later incorporated into the city of Springfield, but it has been a brownfields target area where we've completed over 20 environmental assessments, some cleanups. There were a lot of associated rail uses here, a lot of factories. Many of the buildings, due to the age, they were built in about the 1880s. At that time, did use lead paint and asbestos, so our program has helped identify those and connect business owners, property owners with residents, and we really have relied on our partners and a layered financing approach for a really successful redevelopment here. But the key was grassroots community planning. We have lots of diverse businesses in the street. It's actually an area where we have a high concentration of minority and women-owned businesses. The area was very impacted by what we called the urban donut effect that began happening in about the 1970s with what we call urban sprawl in America, where the suburbs were being developed and we had commercial malls and things moving out, and there was a period of disinvestment in some of these historic areas. So this became an EPA brownfields target area where we received special input, technical oversight from the Environmental Protection Agency, Department of Natural Resources. And now it really is a thriving, eclectic commercial area with some maker spaces. I put Askinosie chocolate on here because this is really an internationally known small batch craft chocolate factory with a wonderful sustainability mission in a redeveloped brownfield site. So great gifts. I would say if you get a takeaway here, at least visit Askinosie chocolate website. And I believe Sabina has toured that site with us. We have a national historic site, the Jefferson Avenue footbridge, which is the second longest footbridge of this kind in the nation. It spans 16 active rail lines. It's definitely a tourist draw, as are the historic buildings. So a little on the public-private partnerships that went into this. We use our local sales tax, and that's helped to fund public infrastructure like sidewalks, lighting, seating, trash and recycling containers. We've worked with the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development on multiple resources, specifically some low-interest loan programs for private property owners to purchase and renovate properties. Lots of state and federal tax incentives have been used successfully here. We have tax increment financing, which freezes the property taxes at a level and captures the incremental increase as the property redevelops and they naturally increase in value, and that's put back into public improvements to support that private investment. The Community Improvement District is a local taxing district that funds maintenance like snow removal. We do have all seasons of weather in Springfield, Missouri. We can get lots of snow, rain, sunny days, sometimes 100 degrees. So it's very helpful to have those things and to keep it just clean, safe, friendly. Plus a philanthropic organization, the Commercial Club, that raises funds and provides events. Here you see a photo of the farmers market, which is very popular, for all folks. This is a very pedestrian-oriented development. We have lots of loft housing, unique, one-of-a-kind businesses. We have received federal and state appropriations for special projects, such as renovating publicly owned buildings, providing parking lots, some electric vehicle charging stations recently, landscaping, things like that. Historic tax credits, since this is a National Register Historic District, those have been used, and I could go on, but you get the idea that all the way from local, state, and federal, we've tapped into the most advantageous financing we can. But with only a few minutes left here, I'm going to quickly just hit on our keys to success on brownfields redevelopments. Really begin with our community planning process and then the adopted plans. So this comprehensive plan update was just adopted by our city council community-wide. This is the 35,000 viewpoint that directs policies, programs, funding decisions. This is citywide. This photo that you see in the top right is the Commercial Street Historic District. This is a piece of our planning process, but very important to be inclusive. We spent about 2 years working through this process and received an award from the American Planning Association for equitable and outstanding community engagement. The core elements of the plan are investing in our housing and neighborhoods, economic development, transportation and mobility, infrastructure and community facilities, and our parks, greenways, and natural resources. And we've used our brownfields and remediation to help facilitate all of these types of developments, and will continue to do so. Jordan Valley Park planning, success and more planning. It seems like this started about 20 years ago, and we've had some wonderful successes through the plan, and really the environmental remediations that took place unlocked these properties for redevelopment. We now have a baseball stadium We have a ice skating park. We've even had an Olympic gold medalist ice skater at that park. Lots of greenways, and this is through our center city downtown, where we had originally our Jordan Creek mini springs, and that's how Springfield developed, as well as the rail through here. But it created lots of complications. But Sabina and her folks have helped us with this planning effort as well. And we have actually recently completed a new phase of the planning, and that's to really focus on daylighting the Jordan Creek, which was underground. So we've held charrettes. Here's a concept design showing what the creek could look like. It's currently in an underground channel, but this is a $30 million project where we've conducted assessments and do have cleanups tied to this. In fact, one I was interested in hearing more from Ronald about, if you could provide any resources on. We also have former gas works site and gas manufacturing site that we're currently working on a remediation plan for in this area. To hit on Forward SGF, we also identified sub-areas that created or represented potential for regional economic development and growth. One of those was Lake Springfield, but I'm sure Sabina can share my presentation with you all and you can look into it in more detail. This sub-area includes over 1,000 acres of publicly owned land, including the lake that was created to support a coal-fired power plant, which was decommissioned in 2020. So that helps with our air emissions, and now we're looking at reimagining this area and creating new jobs. You see a photo here in the center of the power plant. The lake was actually created by damming it for the cooling operations. We actually received funding from the U.S. Department of Commerce, Economic Development Administration, $1 million to complete a comprehensive plan just for this area. And we're looking at this as kind of a mini citywide plan in a way, if you will. We envision it will have lots of elements, as you see here, and we've assembled a project team. We also already have on board consultants. This is a cooperation with our municipality, City of Springfield, City Utilities, where I work now, that provides the electricity, power, gas to the community and actually owns the power plant, which we are looking at adaptive reuse for. Park Board. Hatch Foundation is a relatively new philanthropic organization which has dedicated $100,000 to assist in the planning effort and wants to continue to help provide community amenities to get folks in the outdoors, as well as Economic Development Administration. We do still have some current operations at the site for power. I wanted to hit on the importance of inclusivity when you're working on these large-scale planning initiatives. This was a group of first and second graders, and this is a map of the Lake Springfield area, and they're just using Legos and Play-Doh and anything they could find and markers to think about what they would like to see here. And surprisingly, they have come up with some of the best ideas I've heard yet. They want outdoor movie theaters, ice cream, pizza, bridges over the lake. They want splash pads. I thought, okay, did we really need to hire these expensive consultants? I think these guys have it done. But some really big goals that came out of it are just to promote regionalism, that economic growth and connections to surrounding communities. We have Branson, Missouri, huge tourist attraction with huge lakes. We want to create good jobs, good paying jobs, especially for folks in need. The planning process and schedule, this is something that's currently in process and planned to wrap up in summer of 2024. Plan implementation is ongoing. This is one of those that has generated so much interest and imagination. We're already getting proposals for developments out on the site of what people would like to do. Here's just a map of the area and some of the existing facilities. And I'm going to click through quickly because we are about at time. In fact, this may be, there we go. And I hit on some of this, the vision statement and the planning goals. I mean, we're really looking at equitable access to the site, some transportation enhancements, active and passive recreational opportunities. Our outdoor amenities are something that we're known for in Southwest Missouri, in this area of the country. And we're really bringing in a diverse multicultural perspective. We're working with our Native American populations, our First Nations, on a place for them to really give some demonstration projects and protect their cultural resources in the area. We have characterization going on currently on the water body, the sediment at the end at the lake, and the entire watershed. So we're looking at water quality improvements and possible modifications to the dam structure here, which does create the lake, but also creates a barrier. So we're looking at maybe having an access around for canoes and kayaks and things, and some ideas for people to interact with the waterways. I mean, I'm going to flip through quickly, and you see some goals here that we want to accomplish as part of this planning effort. We know that there will be some remediation needs here because with the history of industrial uses with the power plant, we have coal ash, which is the residuals stored on site, in place and managed. We know that there are certain areas that are very active that we're going to need to continue to manage. And we really want to activate the site. I mean, this is an underutilized area that if we can provide opportunities for gathering spaces, formal and informal events. I'm going to just flip through really quick on all of these because you get an idea. And like I said, Sabina can, we do want to preserve some of the aspects that are currently on site and connect. You know, there's so much opportunity for festivals, music, events, and people here love water. Community engagement has been extremely important. As I said, we've had lessons learned whenever we did not do our best job engaging the community that caused a lot of problems. And we also have projects like the Jordan Valley I mentioned earlier, where there was so much buy-in from the entire community whenever we looked at funding it and proposed a tax on hotel motel guest stays. It was actually passed in every single voting precinct in our city unanimously. And that is something that's still in place. So that was something that was very important as we get that buy-in there. I wanted to end just with some of our city's new principles on diversity that we've actually codified in our ordinance of what we're going to be focusing on. And I think these are some keys to success as you move forward on any type of community land revitalization project. I'd be happy to answer any questions, or Sabina, please pop in on anything I've missed because you've been heavily involved and know quite a bit about our projects here in Springfield, Missouri.
All good. Thanks, Olivia. Great overview. I don't see any questions in the chat. Anybody have any questions for Olivia?
Perhaps from my side, the task to revitalize power plants from coal industry is also a current task in Germany. Do you get
areas, but we have completed probably 30 environmental remediations successfully, and we have some that are ongoing. And like I mentioned, we have one that is ongoing with our former coal gasification plant that has residuals from 1830s we're working to address. So
do you integrate this type of revitalization also with renewable energy systems and Wasserstoff H2?
Yes, we're very focused on sustainability, resiliency, and renewables, especially now that I am with the city utility. And on that side, we actually have 50% of our energy coming from renewables here now. We have 4 wind farms. Some of those are just to the west of us, just across the state lines where we have more wind. We have a solar farm here locally, and we believe that especially the Lake Springfield project offers innovative opportunities for some demonstration projects in renewables. So we're looking at that. We definitely are moving away from the traditional fossil fuels here.
Perhaps we could ask Eddie Wille here with the questions of communication and the strategy of communication, because Eddie, could you present shortly yourself? You maybe have an own interest to have good communication plans in your agency, and ask your question on or both colleagues.
Thank you. Yes, that's been very important, and it's not always easy to do. We definitely have learned that open houses sometimes work better, you know, even if it includes a presentation, instead of just having your traditional, what we would have as a city council meeting that's very formal and speakers need to sign up. Of course you have that, but you really reach people where they are with multiple modes of communication, two-way communication that's meaningful. We reach out to special groups that maybe have different levels of ability as far as access or hearing or vision impaired, and work with them, and they have given us some of our best ideas. If you design things with ramps rather than a stair and a ramp, you've just designed it for everyone, you know, including young families and people who maybe had a hip replacement or elderly and things. So we realize that it's important and you have to make a special effort to reach certain groups, but in the long term, it's very much worth it.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for your answer, because that's also one of the problems we are dealing with in Belgium, in our region. And also there was a bit my question to Roland. If you have smaller cities which are not familiar with brownfield redevelopment, especially if you have complex sites, that process takes quite a lot of time. And sometimes we are losing support from the local community because they don't see anything happen. So we are working quite a lot on master planning and designing the remediation. And then there's always a question of how can we bridge that gap? So that's why I was asking, do we have, especially around interim use experiences, because that's one of the elements that we are detecting at this moment. As you mentioned, only formal meetings is not enough. But sometimes we also try to organize actively elements on cultural events, or we install playgrounds. Of course, we might expose people to contaminated soil. That's always a fact. But we see if we interact more actively with the community, we get much more support on the site. And that's always good if we have experience from abroad. How are you dealing with the fact that sometimes it takes 3 to 4 or 6 years before something is happening? And do we have specific, let's say, information for local communities? Because that's quite often the fact. We are organizing it from our agency close to Brussels, but let's say 100 kilometers away, a small city or village doesn't always have the same elements or experience that we have at our site. So. And I saw it on your slides that you have specific steps in the whole procedure on how communicate, on what and how. So, and also noted your website, so we'll visit it.
Roland, you mentioned you make the municipalities happy. What is your recipe? What is your idea to do this?
From the beginning, we are very open to that issue. So we normally say we need 5 to 10 years for projects. So it's longer than you said, Eddie. And we put a lot of effort in a continuous communication with our contacts, where we are and what are the next steps. For example, we are also invited to the political committees of the municipalities to explain the status of the projects. But it's really an issue because normally they do not really understand why it takes so long. That's really the case. And for that we are trying to explain it as good as possible. Yeah.
And Roland, that's so well said. And I would add to that that we have adapted a lot because of the pandemic to virtual communication as a method and using our social media outlets. And we let people sign up for emails where we can send e-blast to give updates as they're happening. And we created an explainer video about our Brownfields program and the process. It's a little cartoon we wrote a script for, and you could work with professional video production group, or we had a group in-house, and it just really simplified the process, but put that on our website and use it in presentations so they get an idea of what's happening, the process. So multiple modes. We're regularly asked to come speak at different groups that have an interest, or different boards that help neighborhood groups. If you keep in contact with the neighborhood president, so at least they can communicate back to their neighborhood groups and things. But it's an ongoing effort, and sometimes people think if they don't hear from you for 6 months that nothing's happening. That may not be the case, but we try to have at least a place where people can send an email on the project website, and it goes to all the people working on the project. So it's not just one person responding to that email. And signage on the site that this is in process. And then celebrate wins along the way. If you're getting ready to start the project, we would maybe have a groundbreaking and send out a press release. And if we're getting to a milestone, like the site work is complete, then sometimes they wonder, well, why can we not redevelop it yet? We're still working on the formal approval processes with DNR. So even small bits of communication help.
I fully agree.
Interesting.
Thank you. We have a question from
was a bit
Giovanni
optimistic.
from
Roland was
Italy.
talking about 3 to 6 years, but it's 5 to 10 years also in case of Belgium.
Okay. Okay, Giovanni, could you introduce yourself and perhaps give your questions?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, for sure. I'm Giovanni. I'm a urban planning student, and I posed a question for the previous presentation, but maybe this will be useful. I mean, the question I wrote is how locality and the size of the brownfield influence in the revitalization of industrial sites, because sometimes they have a high reclamation cost. And maybe in other words, what are the parameters that will make a developer decide whether it is beneficial to redevelop this specific site, or whether not to go through all the processes?
We'll start. Olivia?
The question was
Yes, I
for
mean,
Roland.
these are complex sites. They aren't for everyone. I mean, whether it's a developer or a community group, we've worked with some of our Greenway Trails groups before that have taken on sites, nonprofits, for-profits. You know that there's going to be some risk, but also that's great opportunity. Never waste a great crisis or opportunity, right? Because a lot of times, they can get these for a good price. You can come up with an incentive package. So I hit on that a little bit, but we have some local incentives, low interest loans for purchase. We actually had our baseball stadium developed by a private developer on 8 different brownfields properties the city assembled, and created a very attractive lease agreement that was $1 per year that they leased the land. So they got the land for free, basically, and we owned that and had an agreement with them to develop it and helped walk them through various tax incentives. There were some state and federal appropriations and things like that. So really the incentives that can come along with a challenged and compromised site can be great, especially if it's already next to existing infrastructure and in an area where other redevelopments are happening as well. And that was the importance of planning for us. It gave our investors the confidence to know that there is a community-wide vision for this area and that their piece could fit into that and was going to be supported by our city council and our future investments in infrastructure and tax dollars and programs and policies, and we would have the right zoning, and the politics and the funding was going to be coming to support them.
I'm glad you mentioned the community involvement, because I have the feeling that maybe that's a little bit different in Germany, that approach, because it seems to me, from what Olivia was saying, here in the US, it's like the cities have a comprehensive plan, they have a planning process, the community is involved from the get-go, and then it gets decided what's going to happen to the site in terms of what's best for the community. What does the community need and want? So the community gets behind that. Now in Germany, I mean, that's a question I have. Is that, Roland, is that different, that it's more pushed by the developer, or, yeah, I don't know who else. I mean, maybe on the local government per se, like from the top down?
It's case by case. It's really different. I would say it's the projects we have are normally under the planning. What is Hoheit? Planning Hoheit.
Responsibility.
Yes, planning responsibilities of the municipalities, and it depends also on the where these cities are. For example, we have some big, very strong growing, expensive cities in North Rhine-Westphalia is Cologne or Düsseldorf, where normally contamination issues are not playing such a role as in the more landscape areas. So it depends on that. And investors normally are only doing these projects if they are getting an economic benefit out of this. So if the price per square meter is very high, for example, in Düsseldorf or Cologne, a lot of things are going by themselves by investors, and in the other areas they really need financial and personal support. So, and on the other hand, it's case by case, depending who is the actual manager of the company, who takes care on this, and who wants to develop what. So we really have some troubles or struggles in our projects due to the planning process of the municipalities, because often they change it during our work. It really needs a special effort to explain it. It's a bit like what we discussed before. Also, for that you really need a close contact and a continuous communication, that you can do what you want in the right time. We at the moment I just got this information. We are close to starting of an remediation project, and now the municipality is planning to set some container on the site for foreign people on short term, because they need some space. that will really stop our work. So it's only one very new example, but we have a lot of others as well.
Okay, I think we have any more questions in the chat, and we have had a very intensive discussion about the different additional approaches, was not a question of different approaches. I think it's complementary to have a comprehensive planning, trust of investors, but trust of public and landowners, and having agencies and instruments for implementation of projects. So both goes and needs to go hand in hand, and that's the message of our working groups, that we need multidisciplinary work to engage intensive activities towards land recycling and the land cycles, we are calling in German, cycles of land, in order to make brownfields normal, let's say, a normal thing of public and private activity. So Karl, will you perhaps close the session?
Yeah, gladly can. So also from my side, thank you very much to our speakers today. I think we had a very intensive and very useful discussion. We have recorded this conversation so that we can also refer to it online as well. And all that's left for me to do is to do a little plug to our newsletter in case you want to be informed about future webinars. In these small groups, it's really nice and quick to come into discussion about the important topic of land recycling and land remediation. And it would be our pleasure, of course, to welcome you to future events. And with that, all that's left for me to say is thank you for participating and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.